you don't have to choose between the two. You know, like I read, you know, physical books and hard copies. Like I will never give that up. But there's definitely a space for audio in people's lives.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alexis, and welcome to the Tandem Collective channel. We're here now to talk a little bit about audiobooks, and I've got two Team Tandem members here with me. We have Lucy and Sammi, and they do most, if not all, of the listen-along campaigns and campaigns with audiobooks for Tandem. Am I right in saying that? Yes. Yeah, so they handle, if you've been on a listen along or any kind of audiobook campaign with Tandem, you will have been contacting Lucy and Sammi for that campaign. So as this is their introduction to the Tandem YouTube channel, would you mind just each introducing yourselves and maybe where you are, where you live, and the last audiobook you listened to? How about that?
Okay. So hello everyone, my name is Lucy. I'm based in the north of England in Liverpool. A lot of people will have heard of that already from the Beatles. And the last audiobook that I listened to was actually for a Tandem campaign that we're doing in the US. It was the Oysterville Sewing Circle by Susan Wiggs, and I absolutely loved it.
Amazing. Yeah, we're doing a few different audiobooks for Susan Wiggs coming up.
Yeah, a whole US campaign for three of her backlist titles, so they're really good.
Wow. Sammi, can you tell us where you are?
So my name is Sammi, and I'm based in Cape Town, South Africa. And actually, because of Lucy, I also listened to the Oysterville Sewing Circle and loved it. And now I'm listening to Marple by a collection of 12 different mystery authors. So that's really exciting.
Marple, like Miss Marple, and it's mystery.
Oh,
yeah,
very
nice.
It's a remake of all Agatha Christie's books. So it's like 12 stories inspired by her books on Miss Marple. So it's pretty cool.
That is really cool. Thriller and like mystery is one of the genres that I prefer listening to on audiobooks. I'm actually listening to A Murder of Crows, and that's like an ecologist murder mystery. So an ecologist gets accused of murder and has to sort of do the digging, so to speak, to prove her innocence. So I'm enjoying that a lot. I guess we'll start by asking you each how you first started listening to audiobooks. When was that, and why did you give them a go?
So yeah, I love answering this question, and I love hearing about what other people's reasons are, because I think everyone seems to have quite a unique journey into discovering audiobooks. I first started listening to them around this time 3 years ago, when I had not long had my son, who is now 3, and I was on maternity leave, and of course just completely new phase of life with becoming a mom. And I had always listened to podcasts, like I'd enjoyed podcasts, and I was one of those people that, and I always say this now whenever I meet members of the Tandem community who have preconceptions about audio and like, oh, I'm just not sure whether it's for me. Like, I used to be that person. I used to, you know, I knew audiobooks existed, and I knew some people who listened to them, and I was just always like, no, I just prefer reading a physical book. And then when I had my son, and I was kind of, you know, out and about taking him for walks in the pram, and he would, you know, be asleep, I then realized that if I was listening to an audiobook in my ear, like, it was a snatched window of time for some reading, and I was like, oh my god, this is a game changing. And then since then I have just never looked back with them, really. And I think a lot of people, that's probably quite a common reservation that people have about them, like, oh, I just prefer a physical book. And it's like, you don't have to choose between the two, you know. Like, I read, you know, physical books and hard copies. Like, I will never give that up. But there's definitely a space for audio in people's lives, I think. So that was my discovery into them. I'm with you on, I do enjoy thriller, but I probably listened to, I can't remember the last time that I actually read a paperback or a hard copy of a non-fiction. I listen to a lot more non-fiction than I read it. I think because I always found them just harder to absorb, or you can't get lost in them the same way. So yeah, I've always listened to quite a lot of non-fiction. Big fan of like a kind of memoir, a self-narrated memoir via audio. So before my Susan Wiggs title, the last audiobook I'd listened to was Prince Harry's Spare. Yeah, we need a whole other episode of this to get into that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I just can't. I'm so glad that I embraced audio when I did. I can't ever imagine not listening to them now.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think a big reason people listen to audio, or they start listening to audio, is that they have less time on their hands, or it's a great way to get some reading done. If they have a lot of things to do, they don't have a lot of time. Sammi, how about you? How did you first start listening to books?
So I started listening to audio when I got COVID in 2021. So I was bedridden and just feeling very sorry for myself. And as I was getting better, my eyes were still really sore, so I couldn't hold up my Kindle or a book, but I was getting kind of bored. And so I thought, well, you know what? Let me try this. Similar to Lucy, I dabbled in podcasts, and they were really nice. And I thought, well, it would be nice to listen to something that's longer than 15 minutes and that's a continuous story. So I picked up A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and I kid you not, I inhaled the trilogy like throughout my whole COVID in bed situation, and I've never looked back. It's been really, really good. And I started incorporating it afterwards, just like when I'm cleaning the house, when I'm cooking, when I'm taking out the trash, when I quickly need to run down to the shops. And now that I've got a really long commute, I just listen to an audiobook both ways to work. So it's really nice. I enjoy it.
Yes. You drive to work.
I do.
Yeah, it is such a good way to get reading done on the commute, or just in any kind of long trip. So yeah, that is awesome. I kind of miss driving for that reason, because I don't drive here in London. What things are unique to audiobooks that you think, could pull people in or encourage people who haven't tried them before to give audiobooks a shot?
One thing for me is when I read a book, it comes to life, and I've got all the characters in my head, and I can see the pictures in my head. And for some people, when they read a book, that it just doesn't happen in the same way. And what I love about audio is, in a world today where we are watching and consuming different forms of media, and we're very used to a lot of stimulation, when there's an audiobook that has surround sound, well, not really surround sound, but like the effects, the sound effects, a full cast, different accents, different like levels of noise, it really brings the story to life in a way that how I've experienced reading a physical book. And maybe someone who might not be as avid a reader but is still interested in dabbling in reading, listening to an audiobook with a full cast and music could be a game changer, just a full-on experience. And it's a positive one. I've really enjoyed those. I think those are my favorite kind of books, actually. Audiobooks.
Yeah, I love an audiobook with like sound effects, and the multicast, or the multi-narrator, I should say, is almost like harkens back to radio dramas. They're really the same, like BBC radio dramas and full cast audiobooks. Although audiobooks now are usually unabridged, and sometimes the radio dramas would be abridged. But yeah, that's one of the things that I love about them as well. How about you, Lucy?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with everything Sammi has said, but I think the convenience is just such a big selling point. And like you say, for people who are busy, or trying to multitask, like the washing up feels like it doesn't take me anywhere near as long when I'm focused on, whatever audiobook I'm listening to. And it is just that, kind of finding opportunities for reading and for absorbing, books in a different way. So I think the convenience is definitely, one of the biggest selling points for me. But also, and I've had conversations with, some of our audio ambassadors at Tandem who have felt this, that the audio just can add another dimension to a book, and it can completely reframe how you're thinking about things. So again, to use Spare as a recent example, one of our audio ambassadors, she knew that I was listening to it, and she said she had actually started reading it and then switched to the audio, and she found her perception towards Prince Harry really changing by listening to what he was saying rather than reading just the words on a page. So I really do think that the impact of hearing it rather than reading it yourself, it can make a massive difference to your reading experience.
Yeah, I mean, the inflection and the way that something is read in an audiobook can provide added subtext that you may not get as much of by just reading the words on the page. So that's why, like you said, I listen to a lot of nonfiction because it's harder for me to read, and memoirs, particularly read by comedians, have become like my favorite audiobooks to listen to, just because they're always funnier when they're read by the person, like listening to stand up about their life. So that's one of my genres I love on audio. So I wanted to ask, on a practical note for people watching this video, what platforms do you use to listen to audio? Without saying which ones you necessarily don't like, just, which ones do you use? And what do you recommend for people that are just starting in audio?
So I have an Audible subscription, which is either $7.99 or it may have gone up slightly to $8.99 a month now. But that is, I think you get 2 audiobooks like a month with that, which I find enough for me. Like, I know that some people may, be getting through them quicker or want to listen to them more frequently than that. But because I'm normally always listening to something and reading something else at the same time, kind of having that amount in the quota is that works for me. I do think as well, though, that again we did a little bit of market research into this with some of our like new to audio community members, that something that gives you a bit more flexibility rather than have a monthly subscription, especially with the cost of living crisis at the moment, people who are kind of maybe just starting out with audio and testing the waters with it. I know that was a reason why some people were reluctant to sign up for something that would be another direct debit a month. They quite liked the idea of just being able to dip in and out of audio when they felt like it.
Lucy, what was that other one that we had, the purple one, the X-book one?
Zigzag.
Yes, recommended by Alexis.
Yes, I first heard about Zigzag over a year ago now, and so they're an audiobook app, no subscription. And they also, for many of their books, have an X-book feature, is what they call it. So you can actually switch back and forth between reading and listening to the book, or you can read along as you listen, and it will automatically turn the pages for you, I believe. So Zigzag, I'll have the link to that in the description. That's one of my go-to audiobook apps. What about you, Sammi? Any different one?
I have a firm favorite, and it's Scribd. And it's because, and I think Scribd is perfect for when you have really found your feet in listening to audiobooks and you don't want to get broke. Like if you listen to audiobooks at 1.5 speed or 2 times speed, and so you can finish one in 2 or 3 days, then Scribd's perfect for you because it's unlimited access to audiobooks it's $9.99 or 169 Rand for an unlimited amount. The maximum I've ever listened to is 15 audiobooks in a month, and it didn't cut me off. But after a certain amount, it cuts you off.
Because you've yet to hit that limit. That's amazing.
Yeah.
15 in a month, that's really impressive, Sammi.
No, I was really bored. We
This
had
was during
gotten back
COVID.
into a very heavy lockdown. I promise you, I have a life outside of listening to audiobooks. But we had gotten back into a very heavy lockdown, and I was finding solace in listening to audiobooks. And there wasn't lots going on at work, so I was like, okay. So I mean, if you're that kind of a reader, and it's got audiobooks, ebooks, sheet music, podcasts, magazines. I mean, they don't even pay me, and I talk about them like they pay me. Like,
We should mention that this video is not sponsored by any of
not
these apps
sponsored.
that we're talking
They
about.
have never given me a dime. I wish they would.
Yeah, these are all like literally our experience and opinions. Yeah.
And also Libro FM, that's another one that I feel very passionate about, because every time you buy an audiobook from them, it supports an indie bookstore. And you can choose which one you want to affiliate your account to. And I love it. It's really great. I don't know the price for Libro FM, but
I think it's is it per purchase?
I think it's per title rather than a subscription. Yeah.
So it's basically like if you know bookshop.org and .org. If you know bookshop.org and how it supports independent bookstores, Libro FM is the same for audiobooks. So you buy your audiobook on there, it'll support independent bookstores. Yeah, those are all such good tips and interesting insight on like the different models of the apps and how you can access audiobooks. My personal favorite actually hasn't been mentioned, which is Libby by Overdrive, because that is free. It's you use your library card. I have like 5 library cards on my Libby account. I just like collect them, and it's great. I think in 2021, I listened to something like over 100 audiobooks that year.
Wow.
And the majority of them I listen to for free through Libby. So highly recommend having multiple library cards so that you can see which library has the least amount of hold time for that book. That's always helpful. So I will put in the description links to all of the apps that we've talked about, so you can go check them out and see which one works for you. And do let us know in the comments if you do decide to check out one of these apps, what you thought of it. Was there one you liked more? Do let us know. We'd love to hear. Okay, I'm going to ask one more question, and then we can go on to our game. So can you tell us about the different activities that Tandem does with audiobooks, and if there is anything new or exciting coming up that audiobook fans should watch out for at Tandem?
Amazing. Yeah, well, we are, like we say, always on the lookout for members of the community who, you know, have been on the fence about audio and, you know, had those preconceptions that like I definitely had. We actually ran an initiative earlier this year that was a new to audio listen along, where we challenged like 10 readers from the Tandem community to pop their audio cherry. So it was people who had never listened to an audiobook before, and they were kind of like guided through the process with our audio ambassadors. And that had a really, really positive result. Like a lot of the people on that said, you know, they were going to continue listening to audio in the future. They wanted to experiment with more titles. So we actually listened to a historical fiction title for that campaign, and then used the same like test group of people to listen to a thriller. So they kind of had, you know, the experience of a couple of different genres. We've got some UK campaigns coming up over the next few months. So the end of February, start of March, we're going to be doing How to Sell a Haunted House as a listen along by Grady Hendrix. We have got a big US audio campaign kicking off next week, the Susan Weeks one, which, you know, Sammi and I are really excited about that, because we're going to be listening to 3 Susan titles with kind of each group heading up their own team. So we'll have like Team Sugar and Salt, Team Lost and Found Bookshop. So that should be really, really fun. But yeah, the best way to kind of keep in touch about or to be the first to hear about upcoming audio activity that we're running is to sign up to our newsletter. So maybe can we link to that in the
Absolutely.
audio?
Yeah, we'll link to the newsletter. Is it still called Plots and Pastimes?
It is.
Perfect. So we'll link to the Plots and Pastimes audiobook newsletter in the description for you. Great. Anything to add, Sammi?
No.
Lucy covered it all.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. So lots in store for audiobook fans at Tandem, and do sign up for the Plots and Pastime newsletter in the description in order to hear about what's going on with audiobooks and what's coming up and how you can get involved. All right. So to finish off, we're going to play a little game. This game, I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. Yes, perfect. This game is Name That Audiobook, but it's really name the genre that you think.
I'm really excited for this.
I love it.
It's a little bit too specific for what we've got going on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the beginning music from 6 different audiobooks. And based on the options you've got here on the screen, you're going to give it your best guess of what genre you think that audiobook is, and we can discuss it a little bit. But yeah, also, I think going with your gut is always a good way to go. Okay, let me know if you can hear this.
You played it for like a smidge.
Hold on, I'll play the end of it as well for you. I didn't have to edit it nicely. Okay, here we go.
Historical fiction.
Yeah, I was going to say historical fiction.
Interesting. So that one was actually thriller.
Oh,
It could be thriller. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's listen to the full intro. I tried to stop it before the narration where they say what the title is. So here we go.
Macmillan Audio presents The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. Read for you by Louise Brearley and Cogna Holdbrook Smith.
At the very end, you get that kind of like dissonant, kind of scary intervals. But I mean, I can see why you also thought it was historical fiction with like the classical sounding. And I mean, The Maidens does have a lot to do with the Greek mythology or classical history.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to our second audiobook musical intro. See what genre we think it is.
Romance.
I was going to say fantasy.
Ooh.
Interesting. What made you think romance, Sammi?
It sounds whimsical.
It does sound whimsical. Yeah. Is that also why you thought it was fantasy, Lucy?
Yeah.
All right. Well, why don't we listen to the full thing and see what it is?
Macmillan Audio presents The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Clune. Read for you by Daniel Henning.
This is true. There is some very cute romance in that book. So I guess that musical intro really did make sense for that particular book. They did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Okay, this one is a bit of a wild card, but it's fun. So.
Memoir.
Simon & Schuster Audio presents Idiot.
Oh, well, whoops, I forgot to pause it.
I didn't hear that last bit, so you're okay. I've no idea. What is it?
It is memoir, Lucy. Yeah. So that one is Idiot by Laura Cleary, who's a Facebook, Instagram, YouTube creator. So it's her memoir. She goes into her upbringing, drug addiction, recovery, having a family. It's very good. Recommend. What made you think it was memoir?
Honestly, just well, I mean, process of elimination partly. But also it just a hunch, because like I feel that for memoir you could literally depending on the individual story, so many different ways you could go with it, and I couldn't really place it with any of the other genres, and it did sound a little bit like techie, like a bit computerized at the beginning, so
like
I just
non-fiction-y.
Yeah, so I was just like, maybe this is has to be memoir.
I'm so sure it's like someone's job to find just the right song to intro an audiobook.
Yeah.
It has to be.
I would suspect it would be the producer, because the producer is also the one that sits in the booth with the narrator and records it for them. And they have to know the material exceptionally well, and they do all of the like sound editing, or at least part of it. So that's what I would think, although I don't know. Sure. So that was memoir music, and it was Idiot by Laura Cleary. Next one up.
Romance?
It looks like it's not really Sammy's idea of romance.
It sounds like historical fiction.
Give it a listen to and have it reveal itself.
Simon & Schuster Audio presents The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
Oh, a good one. Well done.
Love that book.
Yeah, it's got that
I listened to the audio rather than reading it, and yeah, absolutely loved it. Such a good book.
Yeah, that's I listened to all of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books, and I mean Daisy Jones and the Six, I think, is a notoriously good audiobook that a lot of people recommend. But Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is also a multi-narrated audiobook, really good. And it is both historical fiction and romance. So
yes.
Yeah. So
they
did
tag team. Nice.
It's so funny. Before they announced like the title there, I was picturing people sat in like a kind of dimly lit cocktail bar, like leaning.
Oh yeah.
And then that kind of fits
with like a faux fur kind of.
Yeah. Cigarette holder.
Oh yes.
Which is fitting because it takes place in like the golden age of Hollywood, doesn't it? Oh yeah. Well done, producers of Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
5 stars. 5 stars.
5 stars, yes. All right, I've got one more for you.
Macmillan Audio presents.
We haven't said contemporary fiction.
No, but I feel like that sounds like a historical fiction. But I know we've had that
because it doesn't sound like a happy thing. It sounds like a Firefly Lane type, or The Four Winds, like your heart's gonna be broken. Agreed.
Okay. That was really good and specific off of like 4 seconds as well.
I like to think I'm quite intuitive.
Well, like music is intuitive, isn't it? All right, let's see.
Macmillan Audio presents Beautiful World, Where Are You? By Sally Rooney. Read for you by Eva McMahon.
Yeah.
Also, your heart's gonna be broken.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that one, I mean, a little bit of romance, but it's mostly, I think, like contemporary and like
drama. Yeah.
Yes. And And interestingly enough, these are all books that I've listened to on audio because that's how I have these recordings. So can recommend. Right. So that is all I have for that game. You guys did so well. Like, really, some of those, especially the memoir one, like, I wouldn't have known where that
was a good one.
Yeah. I think because with a memoir, you could literally have anything. Like, it doesn't need to, you know what I mean? I feel there's more scope with that to be, like, you know, to be, like, very unusual. Yeah.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Right. So that concludes our audiobook chat. And thank you so much, Lucy and Sammi, for joining me and spending time chatting audiobooks with me. I hope you've all enjoyed a little snippet of what we do at Tandem with audiobooks, what our recommendations are. And please comment below if there was something that we missed or something that you'd like to know about audiobooks that one of us can answer. We'd be happy to. So please comment below, like and subscribe for more audiobook content. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much.